You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Knightline is brought to you by the Dever team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 276 from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me, as always,
Roger Phipps.
And Ben Stout.
There you go. I wanted to see how that would work. I hadn't done that for a while.
Should have jumped in there.
Yeah, it's all good.
We didn't do that last week.
I set the whole thing up. I set you guys up on that one. I don't think I did it like that the last couple episodes.
I think it's because you nailed the intro this week. I think it's because you nailed the intro this week.
Instead of having to do it like 3 times. Yeah. Sometimes, you guys, I do have to do it 3 times.
It's the Kansas joke I threw in last week that proved true, right? That's what that was.
I don't even remember. I don't remember it. So it's
the volleyball, where we were going to beat the volleyball team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, I do need to remind you guys, though, Kansas is 3-0 in football.
That is correct.
So, you know.
I had saved that for news and notes. Come on, Andrew. If you read the notes.
I didn't. I don't. I have to.
I know.
I have to. I mean, you know, it's very rare. It's not going to last. It's very rare. And the leading offense of college football, which is crazy. Anyway. All right. Roger,
so
what's going on?
On this week's show, the Owls say who? Who's that QB JRP? Fast, furious, and not foul. We break down the offense and defense from this week's beatdown. UCF prepares to sting the Jackets. We go inside the huddle with Knightline's football analyst Trey Neal. And TMO speaks. Your questions in Ask Knightline, the Tijuana Flats hot take of the week, and news and notes.
All right. Well, I think last week we only had a few Ask Knightline questions, and we only have a few Ask Knightline questions this week, and I kind of neglected it last week. So I'm just going to hit them right off the top here, if I can find them. Okay, here it is. We got one that was posted and one that was sent anonymously, which is fine. You guys can, direct message or whatever. I'll get them. I have no problem with that. I'm assuming, though, if you direct message me the question, you did not want to ask the question in public, so I will keep you anonymous if that is the case. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed if you direct messaged me and I don't say your name or whatever.
This is where we need the X-Files music in the background.
It is, yeah. It is. It's kind of weird. It's fine, though. I kind of like the anonymous questions as well. Okay, so Dolly Drama. This is a guy that we know very well from The Dungeon. If you're not on UCFsports.com and a member of The Dungeon, it's like $100 a year. Well worth it. You're going to get all the... I'm not going to say it's just the real fans. I'm not saying something like that. But these are guys that... These are the diehards that... it gets interesting in there, but there's a lot of information in there. Brandon Hellwig
a lot of big time donors in there.
Yeah, these are people that are very, very serious about UCF football and every other sport. And Dolly Drama is a guy that has He's an opinionated guy, but I really like what he posts, and I always have. So I'm really happy. This is like an accomplishment for me, I think, or us, to have a question from him, and I really appreciate it. So his question or his statement is, what is your theory on why Bowser has become invisible through 3 games? Does he have a renaissance against an atrocious Georgia Tech run defense on Saturday? How do we get him some of this? And then he had Bugs Bunny holding Michael's secret stuff. There's a little GIF or JPEG or whatever, a picture.
Or GIF if you're so inclined.
Space Jam reference.
Yeah.
Pretty cool Space Jam reference.
Exactly, yeah. So thank you for your question. So I've been thinking about this and talking about this. I talked about it in the first game. In my opinion, Bowser is not what he was at all in the last couple or last year, I guess. He, to me, looks smaller. He looks more fit. And maybe that's made a difference. Just to me, standing back there with JRP, and JRP's not a huge guy. He's a little, he's got a little bit more weight than Mikey Keene did on him, but Bowser looks really small to me. I think that they're trying to keep him a little bit more healthy, though. But I think it is also... I think it's damaged his game a little bit because he was like a really huge bruiser back there. And I'm telling you, I think he's lost like 20 pounds. I don't know exactly. I would love to see him on a scale just to know, because my eyes tell me that he's lost a bunch of weight. And sometimes with that, it's better on the knees. I know he's always had knee and ankle problems. And that comes with the type of runner that he is sometimes. Sometimes your body can take that, sometimes it can't. Sometimes it can take the extra weight, and sometimes it can't. So if he actually has lost as much weight as I think he has, my theory on that would be that they did that, advised him to do that, or maybe he wanted to do that to help his knees and ankles a little bit, stay a little bit more healthy. I don't know. That could just be me. I don't hear many people talking about that, but just my eyes tell me that he's much lighter. And I think that it's affected his game. I know when I played football that I tried to go up in weight a couple of times and I got slower, came down in weight, got a little bit slower, went back to my normal weight, and then I was okay. So I don't know if that's the case, but... and then also having a dynamic quarterback that can run back there makes the running back game, especially his game, straight up the middle a lot of the times instead of trying to go out, and they're using him a little bit differently as well. And I think that makes him look even more stagnant back there, just going up the middle and not doing a lot more besides that. And they've got him doing a little bit different things. What's your guys' opinion on that? Roger, go ahead first.
A couple things. One, I can't really comment too much on the weight thing, but I think you might be onto something with that because he does look more svelte, for lack of a better term. And we all know that rosters are definitely completely accurate when it comes to someone's height and weight.
Yeah.
I wish
I was actually 6'1".
For me, it's a couple things. One, he's dancing back there. I don't know what he did this last game, but he was sitting there doing, trying to spin off of people and whatever. And he's a north-south runner. They're also using him a little bit differently. I've seen him used as a fullback quite a bit. I mentioned that to Trey a little bit later. And they're using him a lot in pass protection. So they're not giving him as many touches or as many plays that he's in the game. And especially this game, you really saw them ratchet up Johnny Richardson's touches, which was a good thing, clearly. The last thing I'll say on that is I think, too, that, and I mentioned this to Trey, too, I think people are keying in on his tendencies because we have two extreme backs. We have a scat back in Johnny Richardson, and we know what Bowser's going to do. And before, like last year, he would have 20, 25 carries. He could punish you, and he'd start off at 3 to 4 yards of carry, but after a while, he'd break that defensive line down, and he was averaging 7, 8 yards of carry, so he'd average like 4. That's not happening this year because he's not getting as many touches. And, the tendency is if you've got Bowser on the field, you pretty much know he's going to go through the A-gap. And if you can do that, and you know that tendency, you can stack the box or defend against that tendency or come down as a linebacker to fill that gap. Richardson, on the other hand, he's either going to go off tackle or he's going to go outside or he's going to go for a screen of some sort to get him out in space. So if you see Johnny Richardson on the field, you haven't been seeing Bowser on the field. If you see Bowser on the field, you haven't seen Johnny Richardson on the field. Those tendencies make a difference to a defense. I used to be a middle linebacker. If I can pick that up, I guarantee you these coaches that are looking at tape are picking that up. So I think it's a little bit of him getting less touches. It may be something to do with his weight, Andrew. You might be right there. They're trying to save him for the NFL. They made him a promise for him to come back. And they're using him on the plays that he is in. They're using him for pass protection because Johnny Richardson's small, and they're using him to run like a fullback for John Rice Plumlee. So he's being used differently. He's not getting as many touches, and I think him not being able to bowl over guys, I think it makes a big difference there. And that's just what I see.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you're really onto there is the game plan is just changed. I mean, when you got a quarterback like JRP in there and his ability to run, what we saw last year, I think you guys are both onto something there where I kind of feel like this Isaiah Bowser is who we were seeing on maybe the first, second quarter of last season. But eventually our offensive line last season and the game planning where, Mikey Keene was just kind of managing the game. We were continuing to pound the ball with different players, not just Bowser, but just kind of a different makeup of the offensive line last season. It just feels, and it felt like he was getting more than his average of only 3.2 yards per game or per carry, 3.2 yards per carry that he's getting this season. He might have been getting that in the first and second quarter last season. We didn't really realize because once we as an offense last season wore the opposing defense down, that was when he would break that 12-yard run, that 13-yard run where he might have broke a couple tackles, but he got to the second level, and you're able to see a little bit of shiftiness there when he's one-on-one against a defender, or he just runs over the defender. This season, I think he's just not really able to get into that rhythm. Maybe it's because they're limiting his touches, or maybe it's just because of the game plan that we're seeing. I think when you have a mobile quarterback like JRP, maybe it just opens up for the guys in space, the Johnny Richardson type runners that just provide a little bit different wrinkle than as you said, Roger, that the defense kind of knows if Isaiah Bowser is going to run the ball, then they're just going to pound the center of the field because he's not getting outside. He just doesn't quite have that quickness that we were hoping that he would have, and he's not able to. Well, nobody's able to really run over like 3 or 4 guys because they seem to be gang tackling him when he does run the ball. But Gus said in the press conference earlier today, that he's going to get his but he also praised him for what else he's doing in the offense, his pass blocking in particular, and as you mentioned, kind of that playing a little bit of that fullback role. So I'm hoping that one of these games soon, and as Dolly Drama said, hopefully this upcoming game against a poor rushing defense in Georgia Tech, I'm hoping this is that game where we can start to wear him down and he can pop a few big runs and get that confidence that he can still be that running back and, kind of that not only big bruiser, but a guy that has the ability to pop a big run like we saw last season. He's been a little bottled up this year, and I think one last thing I'll say about it is that last season, while we saw flashes of it, I think Johnny Richardson is a much improved back this season. I think he's much more dynamic. We saw it freshman to sophomore year, Johnny Richardson. We, saw that he had flashes of, being somebody who could be really good this, in his upperclassmen seasons. And I think that that's a little bit of what we're seeing with Bowser, is that just by comparison, Johnny Richardson in this offense is just much more dynamic, and he just stands out to you while you're watching the games much more than Isaiah Bowser does, and he's getting a little bit passed up because of it, even though Isaiah Bowser has 50 rushing attempts on the season and Johnny Richardson only has 21. So by comparison, it's much less, but 8.8 yards per carry versus 3.2 is just making Johnny Richardson stand out a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then defenses are scheming for John Rice to run as well. So, they're scheming for run a lot more than they are for downfield passing. So that's another thing that kind of, I think, might have Isaiah bottled up as well. So, he's Johnny Richardson with his 21 attempts has 188 yards. Bowser so far with 50 attempts has 161 yards. Averaging 52.7 a game. Johnny Richardson 61.7 a game. Let's see. Average per run, Isaiah Bowser 3.2. Johnny Richardson 8.8 so far. And then longest Isaiah Bowser run 11 yards. Got 5 touchdowns though. So, and they are using him in that Wildcat or Wild Knight. I'd rather Wildcat, but yeah, so the stats kind of show what's happening there as well. John Rice Plumlee, by the way, I do talk about this with Trey later. I mentioned this stat. He is leading the rushers, obviously. 337 yards from scrimmage, losses, so 304 net yards on the season. He's averaging 5.7. Has 3 rushing touchdowns, and longest being 36, but he's averaging 101.3 a game so far. Definitely on track to be a 1,000-yard rushing quarterback, which is kind of interesting.
As we talked about a couple seasons ago with Greg McCrae passing over 1,000 yards for the season, like we haven't often had 1,000-yard rushers at UCF, even from the running back position. And so
we may have multiple ones this year.
Yeah, I think this season is kind of keying up for that big rushing offense in total and maybe a couple 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah, although it's very balanced and close as well, believe it or not. So I'd have to look down farther in the...
It's been 60-40 for the split for rushing versus passing on this game and our first game against SC State. Against Louisville, it was closer to 50-50. So I don't know how much that tells us, but when the running game is going and it's going strong, we do well. And we all know that a lot of Gus's game is predicated in the past on having a strong running game and a mobile quarterback. So this is one of those. It's all going according to plan, folks.
Yeah, 143 rushing attempts and 102 passes. So there you go. I was looking for that stat. Okay, so thank you, Dolly Drama, for your question. I hope we answered it there. And then the next one, basically. This guy asks, do you think this kind of performance is sustainable? And I think what he means by the difference in the Louisville game and this game. Wondering if this is sustainable to keep doing what we did against FAU. I'm going to say I hope so. I hope it's sustainable. But I mentioned when we were talking to Trey as well, we kind of played a much lower competition in the very first game, a little bit more equal or maybe better. We'll have to see how Louisville winds up. They didn't do well in their first game, and then they lost their second game or their third game. Just barely.
And a nail biter.
Played a great game. That was one of the best games on Saturday, period. I watched that game, Louisville and Florida State, and what a game. It was just drama the entire time. So
I wanted Louisville to actually win for a number of reasons, but I was very, very happy to see them lose on a pick six the same way we lost. So I was very, very happy to see that. But you're right, it was a good game, and they should have won that game. Had it not been for the pick six, they would have won that game.
I think Ben and I are on the other side of that. I think we were both rooting for Florida State. I know that it can be weird when you're rooting for an in-state team and then against a team that just beat you, because you would want that team to be world beaters that beat you, but it just wasn't happening. So I don't really like Louisville, so I can't root for them. I don't care who they're playing, unless they're playing the one across the state,
the Cows.
Yeah. And thank God.
Surprisingly,
speaking of
that game against Florida, oh my goodness.
Thank God Florida beat them, because we would never hear the end of it.
That was the best outcome for us, because they ended up losing, but it still showed that Florida isn't that great, because I'm hoping that the Cows have not found some mojo all of a sudden. I don't think they have, because Florida has played pretty mediocre, in my opinion, the first few games.
Sometimes you play down to your competition, too, and I believe that Florida was definitely playing
2017 down to UCF and 2013 UCF sure did that.
Yeah. So I think that was what was happening there. Okay, so is what happened this week sustainable, I guess, is what he's asking. Like I said, I hope so. I don't really know how to answer this question. Maybe you guys can do it better than I can, which wouldn't be shocking.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, what did we talk about a lot last week? We talked about a lot of things that we were unhappy with, and things that we were hoping that would get cleaned up. And a couple of those things were the penalties. The penalties were killing us. The first, 2 games of the season, obviously in the horrible loss to Louisville, but I feel like they really settled down and cleaned that up. I don't have the exact penalty stats in front of me, but I know that we definitely cleaned that up on that end, and we didn't have any, huge plays called back because of penalties, as far as I could recall. We definitely had some drops that were that could have been touchdowns, but that's something for another time. And I think the other thing that we were talking about a lot after the Louisville loss was the inconsistencies that we were seeing from JRP that could potentially have been a result of him being rushed, because our offensive line was not playing the way that we felt like they could be capable of playing. And that's probably being nice to some of the things that we saw in our offensive line, especially in the Louisville game. And I think that this game, as far as being sustainable beyond this, I think that this showed us that if John Rice Plumlee is able to get some time to throw the football, he has the ability to throw it, accurately. I was impressed with some of the touch that he put on his passes this game. Really hit the receivers in stride, which is something that we were looking for, with the exception of one horrible pass on the interception that he had. Certainly that was a big mistake. But otherwise, I thought that when he was given time, he he showed me at least that he does have the ability to, put some touch on the ball, put it in the receiver's hands in stride and in the right spots. And so that was what I was impressed with. And then what we've seen throughout the entire season so far, the first 3 games, is that our defense is going to put us in position to win football games. They are, our defense is certainly the better unit overall of our entire team right now. They're really playing well, and so they're going to put us in position to win. And I think that with a disciplined UCF Knights team and that defense still clicking the way that they are, barring injury, this is sustainable.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a few things. One, as far as the penalties are concerned, there were still penalties on the field. We just didn't have ACC refs that we were also playing against, which we will be playing against Georgia Tech, but I don't think they care because Georgia Tech won't be doing anything. That being said, as to the sustainability, in my mind, there's a few things. It's one, everything was clicking in this game. We were able to show motion, and we set that up for big plays, kind of like what Frost used to do. He used to show the same thing over and over and over again to set up a big play, and people were catching the ball. So Alec Holler, he caught the ball. He was our leading receiver. O'Keefe dropped on. Baker dropped a few. JRP showed that he could throw across the field to another receiver and throw him open, like you said, leading the receiver. The biggest thing for us, I think you're right, Ben. Defensively, I think we're good. I don't think we'll have any issues defensively. Offensively, like you said, the offensive line, for lack of a better term, was offensive at Louisville, and there were a lot of different reasons for that. But I think offensive line play is going to be a key. There's going to be stronger tests in the AAC. SMU is going to be one. Cincinnati is going to be another. Believe it or not, Tulane will be, who won against K-State, I think, this past weekend.
I don't think that's anything totally special, though. No,
K-State. It may not be, but I think they're undefeated, and they're kind of reaching the potential they were supposed to have last year. They had a lot of noise around them last year, and then the hurricane hit, and then they were in Houston, practicing in Houston and all this stuff, and it really disrupted their season. Yeah. I watched them play that game, and defensively, they were pretty stout. They held K-State in check. I know you hate them, but in Manhattan. Yeah. So
in Manhattan, to me, that's kind of a key there. They did go in there and whoop them in their home stadium.
Exactly. So I think for us, it's going to be. One, can JRP consistently stay healthy throughout the season playing the way that he's playing? Because if he goes down, I think, that whole offensive momentum and everything we've built is going to, take a big hit. Then there's going to be, the timing and all those things that he's starting to establish with the receivers. I think that's going to get better. I think the offensive line's going to get better now that they're playing well or playing more snaps together, because there's something to be said for that. If we can keep JRP healthy, and avoid taking 2 touchdowns off a board like we did with Louisville, I think we'll be okay. We'll be in every single game. Will it be 600 yards every game? I don't think so. I think Cincinnati will be able to game plan versus us a lot better. I think we'll have teams like Tulane that will play us tough, that have really strong defensive lines. In fact, Georgia Tech is ranked number 8 in tackles for a loss, with 28 tackles for a loss through 3 games. So there's going to be some road bumps, but as long as we can pivot, which is what Gus showed this week, and as long as we can get Johnny Richardson and O'Keefe the ball in space, I think we've got a good shot at sustaining offensive prowess. Is it going to be the same level as it was this week? No, that's going to depend on the level of who we're playing, and also the health of JRP. So I hope he stays healthy throughout the rest of the season, because right now the offense is running through him. Yeah,
I do worry about him remaining healthy. we all have the little trauma of watching Mackenzie get hurt on one of those runs that was, not supposed to happen like that. And, every time JRP takes off running, I kind of think the same thing. I mean, he's wearing number 10. It looks very similar,
Speaking of looking similar, that number 10 flying through the air and going upside down and flipping around, that certainly remind me of
Mackenzie did that a couple of times
against Memphis in particular. That was an even bigger play, but what Mackenzie did against Memphis in the rain there when we were trying to come back and win that game, that was that play by John Rice Plumlee really is going to get his team behind him, I think, even further. So that was great. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it certainly reminded me of that.
No, I think they knocked his nameplate off on that one. No. They actually switched jerseys in the middle of the game. But
his jersey must have got ripped or something. I didn't see exactly what happened.
I actually heard the story behind that one.
Yeah, I did too. The story was that the story was that he actually had a small on, and because he wanted to look bigger. And so in the middle of the game, it was too tight. So he asked them to get a medium for him, and they didn't have a nameplate for it. So if you watch the telecast through CBS Sports, you see him on the sideline, and they're trying to get a jersey over his head while the defense is out there. And supposedly it was because, he decided, hey, this was too tight. It's kind of restricting me and my breathing. So let's go with the medium.
Interesting.
So he needs a schmedium. I don't know if Nike has a schmedium or how that works, but that's the story behind the jersey.
Okay, good. That's interesting. Says offensive penalties only 3. I don't know if I don't see where it says anything about defensive penalties. Maybe there were only 3 penalties. Was there only 3?
There were 3 penalties.
Okay, well there you go. That's pretty good compared to where we were at before.
11 for 111 last week.
You know what? A sneaky 653 yards too. Because you don't watching the game. When I look at the stats after the game, I'm always like, sometimes you're like, wow, really? We had 321 yards rushing? I guess. It just doesn't seem like that, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is the score, too,
314 and 653 yards total, though. Wow.
Remember, we had those 2 big fumbles, one by Johnny Richardson when we were entering the red zone, and then the other one on the other side where our center snapped it into his ankle and caused a fumble.
We had 4, but 2 we lost. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder what they considered the 4 to be, because I remember 2. Maybe it's
I don't know if they counted that when Kamari Gamble had that catch and he was falling to the ground and he landed and it kind of popped out there. I don't know if they were counting that one as one, because I only saw 2.
I'm sure the 2 fumbles that weren't lost were whether it was that Kamari Gamble play or not. It's probably similar to that, right? Like a end of a play, running back kind of loses the ball and he like grabs the or whatever it may be. It was something that wouldn't be noticeable even for a worthy of a replay. I imagine is probably the case there. So
John Rice Plumlee, 25 of 36 and 1 interception. 339 yards passing.
And a touchdown.
Yeah. I said this when we were talking to Trey, so you're going to hear it again. I'm not 100% sold yet, still, on John Rice Plumlee. He looks great when he runs the ball. Great when he runs the ball. Passing, though, he's still underthrowing a lot of balls, and the accuracy is getting a little bit better, but and I know this is only the 3rd game into him coming back to playing wide receiver, but there's usually a reason if you switch positions from being a quarterback I'm not sold yet until I see him making better decisions with the ball. There were definitely some ones that he tried to force in there and some that were underthrown. The underthrown one resulted in an interception. Mikey Keene had a bunch of interceptions when he was getting going last year, obviously. But I'm still not completely sold on the throwing part. Running is awesome. But
the interception, we were kind of talking about this off air here before we started recording. I've been watching his throwing motion and kind of slowing things down on the replays, and his throwing motion's a little bit different. Most quarterbacks, they are taught to release the ball, their arm comes over their shoulder and release the ball. And when they release the ball at the top of that arc, it's usually when their hand is on the laces and about halfway up the football. JRP releases it just a little bit later, and the ball actually rotates. And when he stops touching the ball, it's in the bottom right-hand quadrant of the football. So it almost makes it look like it goes a little bit flat and doesn't have as much air as you would normally expect, because the arc at which he's releasing it is different. And where he's releasing it on the ball adds a little extra spin and zip on it. So I don't know if it's something that like that minuscule in the mechanics, but I did notice, he did get some air under some balls, but they don't have the arc like what Dylan Gabriel had or Mackenzie Milton had or those types of folks when he's going on those long passes. And I think it may have something to do partly with his mechanics.
Maybe he has small hands.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I mean, I'm serious, because that's a huge thing with quarterbacks. I mean, if you look, and Kyle, I remember him talking about this multiple times. I think we were questioning at some point the way that maybe even Mackenzie held the ball or something. But if you look at most quarterbacks, they have amazingly big hands compared to people that are not playing quarterback. That's usually a really good quarterback has just massive hands. So I don't know. Y'all can make fun of me for bringing that up, but
no,
listen, all that means is big hands means big gloves, right? That's all it means.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go in there, but go ahead.
I was going to say, 25 of 36, he was still, I think that's what,
69.44%.
Yeah, 69%. So, and if you count, I counted it at least. I don't have it on the stat sheet. I couldn't find it, but I don't think they
drops.
There was 4 drops. All right, so what's that, Roger? If we add 29 divided by 36 is 81% completion rate. 81% is pretty stellar on top of the game that he already had. This game, I think he did show some great progressions from the first couple of games. He kind of showed, that he does have some ability there. It's just, I think it's a mixture of him gaining confidence with his teammates, gaining confidence in himself as far as his ability to pass the ball. And then, as we talked about earlier, just, getting a little bit more protection and time to find his receivers
and calling.
Stride.
Yes, play calling
and
too. That's
a very good. Yeah, it's a very good point. Not only slants, we had quick throws to the outside where he could get into rhythm a little bit, which is I think something that last season there was a few games in particular towards the end of the year where Gus was game planning well for Mikey to get into a rhythm early on in the game, and you really saw that on the. Towards the end of the first quarter, you saw a few drives there where he was making good, quick read rhythm throws that I think helped him throughout the game. But shoot, even with the 4 drops, 70% completion rating is a pretty good start compared to the first couple of games. And so I think he's showing some good things, and I think he's certainly with the obviously I said it earlier, we all talked about it on the group chat. I don't know what happened on that interception play. I don't know if something went wrong
He
with.
didn't get enough air on it.
Yeah,
That was
underthrew it.
Underthrew it. I understand. Yeah, I mean it. I mean, I don't know if anything happened as far as it slipped or or it's just a horrible decision or something.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just. I'm going to give him a pass on one, really bad throw on the day. I'm sure there were some others where technically, weren't perfect by any means, but I saw some really good things, and I think he's moving in the right direction. That's for sure.
He did keep us out of some sack situations and some tackles for a loss situations, and getting out of some situations where they had pressure on him, and that was just purely his speed. He out athleted the defense. So we'll see how he does versus some better athletes as the season progresses. But realistically speaking, he did that. There was that one corner blitz that he caught, and he just kind of sidestepped him and then ran forward and got 7 or 8 yards, right? So keeping us out of negative plays and keeping us in positive momentum, as long as we're gaining 3 or 4 yards and staying out of third and longs, then that in itself is also something besides the actual amount of times that he's running and his passing performance, his ability to escape. That really helped us as well. Those are the little things that add up that people don't see.
Lots of short passes as well, though. I mean, he's not throwing a lot of long passes. So right now this is cumulative stats. It's cumulative, I have a little bit of trouble saying. 61 of 101 with 2 interceptions, so that's 60.4%. 778 yards, 5 touchdowns, his longest pass completion being 64 yards, averaging 259.3 yards per game. So
it would help if O'Keefe actually caught the balls that in stride. I mean, I'm not bagging on O'Keefe. We all know how great he is, but there was that one pass at the very beginning where he had him wide open, hit him in stride, hit him right in the chest, and he dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And that's been happening at a higher clip than I've ever seen wide receivers at UCF do. It's not just O'Keefe, across the board.
Oh, the play before that, he hit Javon Baker like square in the face, basically, with a perfect pass to the sideline, and Javon Baker was squared up to it, and he had 2 hands up, and it just bounced right off his hands. I mean, it was just
he was looking forward already because there was a defender there.
Yeah, I mean, he heard footsteps, but I think one of the best passes of the game was just this kind of quick pass to the right sideline for O'Keefe, which was the third play of the second half. Because you remember, we had to really come out of halftime with some momentum. We hadn't done that in the first 2 games of the season so far. It was a relatively tight game at halftime. We were only up by a couple points, and so and we went a 4-yard run, a 2-yard run, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and if we go 3 and out there, then who knows what could have happened. And he hit Ryan O'Keefe on a rope on the right hand side, and I think that just kind of, it certainly was the momentum driver in that drive, but it kind of got us going completely the rest of the game, and that we were able to have the spectacular half of football that we had in the second half of that game. So I mean, those are the type of plays that don't really show up much on the highlight reel, but it's ones that make a huge difference in that game. We needed momentum in that moment. We had to get that first down, and he got it. So I'm happy to see those progression points.
So it looks like, speaking of receivers, Javon Baker is leading the receivers with 17 catches, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging 83.7 a game. Ryan O'Keefe, and I don't know if this is correct, it must be, he doesn't have a receiving touchdown yet this season. 13 catches for 130 yards, 44.3 a game. He missed a lot of the Louisville game, but is that Is that right? Does he not have a receiving touchdown at all?
Yeah, he's had some great plays this season, but none for a touchdown. I mean, Roger mentioned the one that he dropped. He definitely would have had a touchdown in that FAU game had he not dropped that one.
Yeah,
So.
the Javon Baker 251 yards compared to Ryan O'Keefe's 130. That's crazy. And then Alec Holler.
Well, Javon Baker's definitely been his go-to.
Agreed.
100%. I mean, you heard in the offseason, too, before we started in camp, that they were talking about his catch radius and his ability to catch balls, and that they had a real high measure of confidence in his ability to get 50-50 balls. And there was a comment made, I don't remember who made it. I don't know if it was JRP or somebody else, that basically said that if I'm going to throw a 50-50 ball, or we're going to throw a 50-50 ball, it's going to him, because we are, really confident that he's going to get the ball and he's going to come down with it every time. So when they were talking like that, I was thinking Traquan Smith. He hasn't showed that yet, but again, he didn't play, hardly at all last year, and he transferred. And so this is really his first snaps in FBS football. So we'll see. I expect him to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What about the offensive line? We've been talking about them a lot the first couple of games. Do you think they played a lot better this week, or it was just not noticeable that they weren't playing good? Which one is it?
Well, according to PFF, they played a whole heck of a lot better. The Swoboda was, you were mentioning PFF last week. Swoboda was a lot better. Grable played really well. He played pretty rough the first and second game. He scored really high. He was the number one offensive lineman. And they were all in the 70s or above, which means that they had a really, really good game. And, with Swoboda, one of the things he said coming here is when he was at Virginia, he did pass protection all game long on every game, and he wanted to learn run blocking. And I think you're starting to see him pick some of that up in his technique. Hopefully he continues that. But the other part about this is just the offensive line playing together with snaps. I mean, no matter what, you've got 3 guys that did not play together on this offensive line out of 5. So, as they come together and play more snaps together and learn each other's tendencies and strengths, I feel like they'll play a lot better. And I think also some of the scheme when it came to the motion and the 2-back sets and the different things that we were doing, I think that helps keep the defense out of the box and off of your back, and helps the offense take some pressure off of the offensive line. I mean, when you're doing flea flickers and everything else, they don't know what's going on. So, I think it's a combination of them playing a lot better. I think it's them getting more snaps together. I really want to see how they do against Georgia Tech, because they've done really, really well. They've been a terrible team. Their defense overall has been pretty bad, but they're number 29 in sacks, and they're 8th overall in tackles for a loss. So if they hold up this week, which is even stronger than what Louisville's numbers are, if they hold up this week, they may be coming together. Yeah.
Grable was the one that graded really high in the PFF for offensive linemen. I don't know if you mentioned that, 83.1 for him. He was second on the list for offense. JRP was 86.6. Pass blocking, Grable 92.7. And then for run blocking, 76.4, leading the lineman in that. So interesting how this breaks down the passing depth for John Rice Plumlee as well. Just looking at it deep, 20 plus yards, 2 of 6 for 84 yards, a touchdown. So graded really well at that 91.8. Medium 10 of 19, 10 to 19 yards, 3 of 6 for 62 yards, 1 interception. Short, 8 of 10 for 79 yards, 86.9. And then behind the line of scrimmage, 12 of 13 for 114 yards. So the short area there, 0 to 9 yards, is where he's definitely doing really well.
You gave that stat earlier of him having 101 attempts. If we start adding up some of the drops, there were 4 this last game, 3 the previous one before that. That's 7 drops. He's really throwing at more of a 64 to 65% overall completion percentage, which they may be short, mid-range, or what have you. But if they do that, it's really going to be solid. And then, when Alec Holler last week dropped 2 long passes, this week he caught 3 long passes. And one of them he got loose because the zone lost him, and he was able to find him. He caught it, and it was a big pass. And then the other side of where he ran out of gas. He was like at the 10 or 15 yard line by the time he got there. And, that is a big difference maker. Like last week, some of it was ball placement. We talked about that. This week, I think he had the ball placement where it needed to be, on the drops. And, again, this week he would be over 70% completion percentage. And overall, he'd be more of a 64% passer, which is great for a dual threat quarterback. We've made a lot about, we made a big to-do, and I think Louisville was a big emphasis on this, on judging him as a passer. But overall, I think he's doing fairly well.
Yeah.
Well,
so
when you have that type of athleticism, I mean, it just, and you're able to complete, 60-65% of your passes. I mean, it's just, and you can game plan to do that. I mean, that's just, man, you're, like you said, you're not going to get as many stacked boxes like that to just stop his running ability. And when the plays do break down, that's when he can break out, the legs. So I agree. I just
want to see some more down the field long throws. Personally,
you certainly saw that on the Holler throw and the O'Keefe one that he dropped.
Right.
I mean, those are the two that stand out to me. And shoot, even the Javon Baker touchdown that he went up and got, it was an amazing, mossed catch that Javon Baker had when we were already up big in the second half. But that was a well-placed ball that really only Javon Baker could get to. That was pretty well thrown also. So you see some downfield, but you're right. I mean, we got a little spoiled with some previous passers, especially Dylan Gabriel, as far as just being able to put that kind of touch and have your wide receivers run underneath it. And he still needs a little bit of that progression. But I was excited to see how not only our entire team, but also John Rice Plumlee in general bounced back from a very tough week at Louisville. So
yeah, and as much as I hate to admit it, Dylan Gabriel out there at Oklahoma is tearing it up. I mean, tearing it up.
Oh, so, yeah, reunited with Levy,
Yeah, I hate to see it, but whatever. Going to these rushing grades, I just want to look at this really quick on the PFF thing as well. This is the first time I've looked at these. RJ Harvey. We saw him quite a bit in this game, a little bit more than normal. He graded actually the highest of the rushers, of the running backs, or whoever was rushing the ball, because it's not just running backs. Ryan O'Keefe was second. Plumlee was third. So,
which is crazy. As much as Plumlee, as many yards as he put up.
Yeah, 66.2 rated rushing grade for Plumlee. Ryan O'Keefe 67.6, and then R.J. Harvey 68.1. If you want to know where our actual running backs, Johnny Richardson 56.4, and then Isaiah Bowser 49. Just to refresh everybody's memory with this stuff, we're talking about the PFF grading scale. 90 and above is elite. 80 to 89 great, 70 to 79 good, 60 to 69 average to above average, 50 to 59 below average, and 49 and below poor. So, interesting stuff here.
Once I realized that when he came in, because the first time I noticed him was when he ran for a touchdown there at the in the fourth quarter, I believe it was. Once I realized who that was, once I realized it was R.J. Harvey, I mean, I almost jumped out of my off my couch, just because I was so excited that I was so happy for him. He's not somebody that I've ever met before, but it's just we kind of carry his story since he's been here. Before the season last year, that he seemed to be tracking to be the number one running back, in fall camp, and then he gets that horrible injury and he's out for the whole season. I was just so happy for him that he was able to come back and get that touchdown, and then he had a few, really effective runs towards the end of the game there that probably built some confidence and built some good things towards next week. And I mean, even Gus was asked in the press conference today about him, and he kind of expressed that same, happiness for him. And he was proud of him that he was able to get in there, but also did say that he saw some good things and that, this could be only the beginning of using RJ Harvey. So I'm here for it. I'm excited to see what he can bring.
Definitely had some nice flashes there. That one long one, especially. I'm watching the game over again as we're talking, and just got to the point of Plumlee's interception that he threw. That was like, I don't know if the receiver was too far downfield or whatever, but that was like underthrown by like 5 to 7 yards.
7 yards, yeah.
It was. I don't know what happened there.
I think the receiver may have not have been in position as well. Plumlee knew it like immediately, though. If you watching it on TV, he knew immediately that when the ball left his hand that it was going in the wrong spot. So you can just see it on his face.
And Danny Cannell, he was the color commentator on the broadcast, or the TV broadcast. He was. I don't know if he was just in disbelief like we all are, talking about just how short it was thrown, but he really went on for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just talking about how, I saw something a little different in the way he, right as he was about to throw that ball and all that stuff. So he felt like there was, maybe something going on that happened, like the ball slipped or something, but and maybe that was just because he was trying to see it because he couldn't believe how bad he threw it. But
Right.
Well, he was talking about the water, and then earlier on, he was pouring water on the water bottle,
that was
and
just
like he was
weird.
saying it was on the
that's
football, and he was like, "That's like mucus on here," and like
Oh my God,
he
that
throws
was
the ball to the other guy, and he's like,
the other guy drops
he's
it.
like, "I know you don't have great hands, but the guy's like fumbling the ball and stuff."
Yeah.
It's like,
So
dude, he
staged.
just tossed it to you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was
No,
probably.
I just don't think that other guy had the ability to catch the ball. I actually looked him up because I had no idea who he was, and he's been he was a commentator for Boise and then the Mountain West and whatever. I don't think he's ever played a game in his life, and the way he tried to catch that ball was just like, oh my God, what just happened?
Well,
This guy's never played football a day in his life.
I'm sure that it was overdone a little bit for TV as well. So
I don't know. That looked real.
they fooled you, Roger.
all
got
right,
you.
so
That's all right. They got me. I got.
Yeah, got. All right, we're well into an hour here. We need to take a little break here, and then we will come back and talk a little bit more about this. We got to talk about Georgia Tech too, so because that's coming up, and then we have to get Trey's thing in here. So we'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com. All right, a couple things that we didn't talk a lot about the defense in that first segment there, that long first segment. We need to talk a little bit about that, and we talk a lot more with Trey about that coming up here in a bit. And then we mentioned, I think Roger mentioned during the break there, we need to talk about kicking games. So 2 different new kickers.
We didn't get Obarski this week.
Yeah. Well, Colton Boomer did a really good job, though. Missed, I think, an extra point possibly, and but then made a couple field goals. So
42-yarder longer than anyone that Obarski has made in his career.
And we kind of knew that Colton Boomer, coming out of high school, was a pretty good kicker. And we had seen the power that he had during kickoffs. So I don't think it's horribly surprising to see him kick a long one personally, and be pretty accurate. So sometimes those short little extra points are some of the hardest ones. You see fans try to go out there and kick those things, and they can't get it. It's like usually a line drive. So there's definitely he's a kicker for sure. We'll see, how it turns out. I mean, I guess maybe he's the kicker now. I guess we'll see.
I think he is. Yeah. And Gus did say also about the punter. We used our first Aussie punter, Mitch McCarthy. I know that Ben was excited about that because we've talked about having an Aussie punter, and I know that Andrew was as well, because we've talked about this as it shows. Like, why is everybody else? Can they get a Aussie punter and we don't have one? Well, we have one, and he was out there.
I don't remember ever talking about that, but
I honestly don't.
You did.
We've talked about it before. I know we've talked about it before, but I honestly don't even remember watching the guy punt. So now that I'm watching this again, I will. I just remember, okay, it's going down the field and not going out at 10 yards.
He was doing the Australian style, where they kind of catch the ball and then walk to the side and then punt it. So he was definitely doing that. And, Gus was asked about this.
No.
Yeah. Gus was asked about this today. He said Andrew Osteen will still punt and they'll alternate. So I don't know how I feel about that, but we've got our new punter, Mitch McCarthy.
Well, Osteen has really been a really good punter. He's just struggled. Yeah, he's just struggled this year a couple times, but overall he's been very solid as a punter.
The big thing with him, I think that everybody was worried about, is blocked punts, because he's had a few of those recently.
Right.
And when you have the Aussie style, it's much harder to do that. So I think that's maybe why you saw that out of Gus and getting us there.
Now I'm trying to look at the roster and see where this guy came from and everything else. So I don't know much.
Australia.
He's truly Australian, or are you just saying that?
No. I believe he's truly Australian.
Okay, cool. All right.
I just didn't. I just want to quickly say I didn't get a chance to say I was just happy to see someone go out there to kick a field goal, and it looks like Boomer could be the guy that really he brings a lot of, as Gus said in the press conference today, that the kid's got a lot of swag, and we kind of saw that a little bit even in his recruiting process, maybe that he had a potential to be
that high school
real
picture
confident guy.
that he had.
Yeah, he's a super confident guy, right? Exactly. So I mean, it seems like he's our guy, and even the extra point was tough to see him miss that, but I almost kind of liked it when he laced an extra point earlier or later in the game. You kind of see with his teammates, kind of he's got this smile on his face, like, oh, I nailed that one, and so he seems to have a lot of confidence, and we need that because, like I said last week, and like we've all said, certainly this season and seasons prior, it seemed like Obarski, unfortunately, just lost the ability to. He might have been good in practice, but he just kind of lost the ability to be able to make the kicks in the game, and that happens sometimes.
I don't know if you guys heard me laugh
in
the background, but I just found Mitch McCarthy's bio on the roster, and it lists his hometown as Australia. So I don't think that's correct. He is
He's from Australia.
He is Australian, but he's from Australia. It doesn't even list like
Australia, Missouri,
Sydney, or that's just
Canterbury.
Just Australia. We don't know.
He's from the Outback. He's a wandering punter from the Outback that has found his way to UCF.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. That's kind of funny. Read full bio and there's nothing. So,
but seriously, like it's the hair. All of our with the exception of Matty Ice, all of our great punters and kickers have all had great hair.
I don't have a picture
locks,
either.
So.
There's not a picture of him at all. So I have no idea. No clue what he looks like.
Not even a passport picture?
There's nothing. I mean, you would assume that they would have something, and he's just from Australia. He's,
kangaroo stand in the background on the beach, thing like they do for the recruiting.
Hometown. He's just from a country.
This is part of his this is part of his persona, if you will. It's like he's a mystery. He's an international man of mystery.
Exactly. Jeez. Crazy. All right. Well. Yeah, he, let's see, one punt, 46 yards, longest 46 yards, average 46. He's averaging 46 yards. It's amazing.
Can any of us do like an Australian accent? Because if nobody knows who this guy is, we could like pretend to do an interview with him and make all kinds of fun stuff up.
Let's not, but say we did. How about that? Much more fun. Okay, so anything else before we start? Well, let's talk about the defense a little bit. Defense, I mean, you said it earlier, Roger. They're basically the rock of this team. So I'm not worried nearly as much about the defense now.
Let's put it this way. The third quarter said it all. Overall, FAU gained a total of 0 yards on offense in the third quarter and totaled -3 rushing yards. On third downs, they were 0 for 3, and they ran 9 offensive plays, which means we were getting them on 3 and outs or turnovers.
Yeah.
So, that says it all to me about how this defense played in the second half. I mean, they just completely shut them down.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that. I mean, it's huge. Yeah. We can score points and we can keep them from scoring points. It's as simple as that.
Defense wins championships, right? George O'Leary.
Absolutely. Well, a lot more people have said that than George O'Leary, but
yeah, I know. But
George O'Leary definitely, I'm sure, said that many times.
Love to see Lee Hunter out there and getting a sack. He's getting better and better every week. He was the big haul from Auburn. He didn't play last week, but he did play this week, got a sack. Love to see Tremont Morris-Brash out there. He did really well. We talk about that with Trey. And Keenan Hester actually played really well as well. So, the guys that you expect to see out there making plays, the names that we've heard outside of Keenan Hester, he's been, fairly regular, but just an average performer. They were making the plays. Justin Hodges had a PBU. The Corey Thornton had a pass breakup. So seeing those guys out there doing those things is what we expected to see. And we're starting to see them catch up. And I was really happy because I was afraid with Jeremiah, I can't say it now, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste out, that, what that was going to do to our linebackers. And there was some confusion out there because, as we all know, the middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. And there was some confusion in the second quarter. We made some adjustments, put the linebackers in a position where they didn't have to make as many decisions on the gaps and could focus on gaps and didn't have to set the edge. And I think that led to success.
Well, I can tell you that Jason Johnson is leading the tackle column by quite a bit after 3 games, 24 tackles total, compared to Walter Yates, 15, compared to Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. He only played 2 games, so 12. Josh Salazar, Quadric Bullard, and Tremon Morris Brash with 11 apiece, and then kind of drops down pretty good after that. Tackles for loss would be Tremon Morris Brash with 3 that leads that. A bunch of guys tied with 1 sack. So Josh Salazar has 1, Tremon has 1, Justin Hodges has 1, Anthony Maltavo has 1, Lee Hunter has 1, Nakai Martinez has 1. And that is at 6 sacks total. Nobody with more than 1. So,
yeah, I mean, we were all texting each other that the team had to come out strong in that second half to really kind of put their foot on the gas and really start to show what we could be this season. And man, for as well as the offense played in the second half, and we saw some good things there, the defense was unbelievably dominant. I mean, only 18 yards given up in the entire second half. 18 yards. I mean, that's just unbelievable. They really just came to play throughout the entire game. You mentioned, I mean, that first drive at FAU, I was worried because it just seemed like they were just getting whatever they wanted. And it was confusing because we just hadn't seen that from our defense where, we were a little bit on our heels. It was linebackers.
It was linebackers. They were missing tackles. They were taking the wrong angles and overrunning.
Yes, you can talk about all the technical things in the world. It just looked like we were on our heels, and it just was confusing to see that because we hadn't seen it yet all season. But I was so happy that they were able to settle down, make the right adjustments. T. Will has been so good at that this year, and our athletes have responded to it so well. Defense is just something special this season, and it's kind of wild because we do have a couple key players that have been a little nicked up. I mean, even Devad Wilson was, not feeling well in this game. And so, we've got a chance to be a really special defense here. And I hope they can keep it up because it's pretty fun to watch so far this season.
Couple more stats here I'm going to throw at you, cumulative. Corey Thornton with 3 pass breakups. He leads that. A couple other people have 2 and 1. Quadric Bullard, interesting. He's got 2 pass breakups, 11 total tackles, a forced fumble, and a blocked kick. So, and then Tremon Morris Brash also has a blocked kick. So that's a little different.
Yeah, that was a great block by Trayvon Morris Brash for that field goal there. But then also that you mentioned Salazar earlier that had the 1 sack, but I think it was a tackle for a loss. That was, I think, in the beginning of the second quarter, or maybe it was the end of the first quarter where he had he broke free and, destroyed somebody about 10 yards into the backfield. That was a heck of a play when we needed some momentum there.
Devad Wilson has the only interception so far.
And that was off a tip.
Need to get a few more of those.
Yeah, I think, the big thing that we really need to underscore here too is, when the offense turned it over, the defense for the second week in a row came back and, saved their bacon. they got all the way down on that fumble or the interception. I can't remember if it was the interception or the fumble. I think it was the interception. They got all the way down to like the 10-yard line, inside the 10-yard line, and the defense held for three. I think
downs, that was the block,
and then the
block kick. Yeah, that was the block kick, right?
Yeah. Yep, and then they got the block kick on the fourth. So they came away with no points off of that turnover. So it basically negated that turnover for FAU, and it was, that's a momentum killer. That's asserting dominance over another team.
Yeah.
And that was Alec Holler that ran down the defender after that. I believe it was the interception. He ran him down, and I think that he tackled him right there on the 1-yard line. And that's now, like you said, Roger, I mean, that's twice now that the defense has taken that momentum and say, hey, all right, you got him down. We're going to hold him here. And they did. So, I mean, that really just shows how both sides of the ball are trying to, have each other's back. And defense has been just phenomenal.
Yeah, a couple more totally useless stats here. But I'm
starting to sound like me, Andrew.
I'm looking at this penalties and yards, which we obviously talked about. 24 total for 226 yards so far. Our opponent 26 for 220, so not as bad as our opponents through the 3 games. And average per game though, which were thrown off and skewed quite a bit, 75.3 average yards per game. That's a lot. And then another one that I wanted to point out here, our time of possession is up, which we haven't been used to that around here, but our time of possession, 31 minutes, 49 seconds versus 28-14 for our opponents. So we're winning that battle on a lot of these games, it looks like. Third down conversion percentage, we're 25 of 49, so that's 51%. Fourth down, 3 of 5, 60%. There was one other one that red zone scores. This was something that we struggled with a little bit, I believe. At one point last year, maybe we were struggling with that. 68%, 13 of 19 for red zone scores, and red zone touchdowns, 63%. So 68 and 63 there.
Yeah, so kind of put the defense in perspective. 92 plays for UCF offensively this game, 59 for the opponent.
Right. Yeah.
You can't score if you don't have the ball. So that tells you they're getting them off the field right away. It's not just, hey, the bend don't break defense. This is defensive dominance when it comes to playing against another team. So you're right on the time of possession. The other thing that kind of jumps out to me is the third down conversion. We had 51% third down conversion in this game. Total of 32 first downs. That's double what we had against Louisville. And we held them to 25.58%. So on average, you're wanting to be about 38 to 40%. So we're well above that of what we're converting, and we held them to next to nothing. And 60% on fourth down conversions. We were worried about our kicking game there for a little bit, and we were kind of in that weird space in the middle of the field. We didn't punt the ball, and we won 60% of those opportunities.
All righty. Well, I think that we should get to talking with Trey here next. So let's take a little break, and then we'll do that. We'll be right back. If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Knightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, Everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company, and they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
All right, joining us again, Trey Neal. Trey, we missed you last week. Thank you for joining us again this week. Is there anything you wanted to say? I'm going to give you the opportunity. If there anything that you wanted to say about the Louisville game, real quick.
I'm better now. I was mad, but to me, I was there on the sideline, and it's just I had a problem with just the offense that play calling, but.
Okay.
It was better this past game, so
yeah,
we'll let those bygones be bygones. So it's all right.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure.
Well, hold on though. If you were on the sideline, what was the team's mood like in the second quarter? I mean, did they stay up? We were talking about that last time, where we don't see them up in the partying or doing the dancing or anything like that. What was the sideline like?
Yeah, it was a little dead, I guess. From like past stuff, I wouldn't say they were down in the sense like just silent, but they weren't, like you said, they weren't like uber excited, just like going crazy, But I think that kind of played along with it. But it was just, are you saying the second quarter or second half?
Second half, really.
Oh, second half it started because the offense started getting stagnant a little bit, and they weren't really. I don't think they scored in the second half. But you could see there was a little bit of frustration. But, for the most part, it was just guys weren't really bringing the juice. They'd make a good play, but it wasn't enough energy to kind of, carry them over, and it just becomes contagious, But it was a little down, I'd say, that second half. It was pretty down.
Were you
think
able
it made
to...
a difference?
I don't think it would have made a difference in the outcome of the game because of what we were doing on offense. I don't think we were challenging Louisville enough, in my opinion. Gus was calling screens, draws. I think, once they figured out that Rise really wasn't going to throw it past 10, 15 yards, unless it was just a one-on-one to Baker, then I think they kind of game planned around it and just made him try to be a thrower. And I think, I think that's why. That was my opinion. But again, I'm a lot more satisfied from this past week.
Okay. Were you able to go in the locker room or anything after the game?
Not like normally if there's a win. But we went in a little bit later, and the guys were kind of, they were all right, but you could tell they were pissed that they let it get away from them. But we didn't hear any of the speeches or anything that the coaches made because they didn't let us in that early, and we kind of know as players that give them that privacy to kind of cool down a little bit. So
yeah, I just wondered about the mood and what it was like in there. If there was, the only thing that I worry about after a game like that is guys like starting to argue or, something like that where
or punches being thrown at, kickers or,
Yeah. It wasn't. I think it's a little early in the year for that. If they were doing that this early, I think that was big problems. I think, while I don't endorse punching kickers, I think that at that time, that buildup of just that season was kind of taking a toll on some guys.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think, as they're not going to be, happy-go-lucky after a loss, as they shouldn't. But
right.
And
if they were, I'd be worried about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, just, come off a loss, they know what they messed up on, and they know they had to fix it, and they did. So that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, so moving on to this week, they did fix some stuff. Defense, I mean, I'm not worried about our defense anymore. Really, period. I just feel like that you can tell that they are very well coached. And you can tell when something is going wrong, it gets fixed fairly quickly.
Yes, and to me, that's the best thing that I saw. Because that first drive, I was like, I mean, what is going on? There's nobody tackling. They're just running the ball. And I mean, I think they had that one big play to the receiver, but other than that, they were just gashing us. And I'm sitting here like, what is going on? But for the most part, they pretty much knocked it out at that point, and that was it. I think they, defense made a quick adjustment. So I think that's, I give props to the DC for doing that, because to me, that's what makes you a great coach in my sense. I mean, some guys, it takes 3 quarters for them to make adjustments. When a guy can make an adjustment, after the first or second drive and then make something null, I think, that shows great coaching. So they're in good hands over there.
Well, yeah, and then, they didn't score after that first quarter as well. The rest of the game, They didn't score. They scored those 14 points, and then especially, looking at the stats, that really jumps out. If you, if I was just looking at the stats and didn't get to watch the game at all, I'd be like, whoa, the defense super turned it on after they had a little bit of adversity.
Exactly. And that's what that's all you can ask for, in my opinion. 14 in the first quarter and then, shutting them out the rest of the way. And then, I mean, they were harassing the quarterback. And I don't think he wasn't even over 50% completion, I don't think. I think he was under that, which, I mean, that's amazing. I'm always going to give credit to those DBs because that's what I played. But, yeah, those guys they looked really sharp after that first quarter, man. They looked really sharp. Was there anyone on defense individually that really stood out to you that really made a difference? To me, I don't know if it's necessarily making a difference, but to me, number 12, Hodges, he always just jumps out, just in the sense of his athletic ability. And then 15, he played really well. He played really well. Morris Brash, I think, played really well. And I think overall they played sound defense. So I think that's really, to me, all you can ask for. But those guys, those 3 particularly, they were catching my eye.
Yeah, Jason
Especially
Johnson, who's number 15.
Yes.
10 total tackles, 3 solos, 7 assists, and 1 tackle for loss of 2 yards. The next closest person was Trayvon Morris Brash with 6 total tackles, then 5, then a couple people with 4. Quadric Bullard had the 5. Only 1 sack here on the stat sheet. Lee Hunter got 1. But, yeah, you're right. 15 definitely is a player. And it was nice to see him, step up in the absence of
Baptiste,
yeah. JJ, what is it? JJB? B. Yeah, I couldn't think of it for a second. Yeah, yeah, the 3 names there. We got a lot of people with 3 names. So I knew who I was looking at, but I'm old, so it happens. Not good short-term memory. Roger, go ahead. I'm sure you have some questions.
Yeah, I have a few things. Well, first of all, Trey, to your point, it was 44.83% for the completion percentage for Louisville.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that was atrocious. They had 13 completions on 29 attempts, which, believe it or not, actually was pretty close to what Louisville did the previous week. They only had 14 completions. So that just goes to show you how anemic that offense was in the second half. The biggest thing, too, when you're talking about drop, he had 4 pressures and
you mean
2
Tremont
tackles for a loss. Yes, Tremont Morris-Brash. He had 4 pressures and 2 tackles for a loss. So you're right. He was in the backfield often. And he was there for that field goal. He didn't get it, but he was right there with that field goal block too. So he was all over the field. He had a great game. So, a couple of things that kind of jumped out at me. One thing was that I've seen this all season. I'm assuming they're coaching it this way, but I'd like to hear it from you. What's the deal with the defensive backs not looking for the ball? They're running with them, but they're not looking for the ball, and it's like pass interference. That's the first thing that they're going to call if you're not looking for the ball.
I don't specifically know, but I mean, they could be being taught that. I don't know exactly. Personally, I don't like when you teach DBs not to look back for the ball and fight through the hands. I think that's something you do like last resort. Because if you're in position to make a play, turn and find the ball, that's an interception. That's just how I was taught. I was taught that because a PBU, they didn't catch it, but I mean, they have another shot to try to catch it. Interception is what changes the game. That's what, I was always taught at UCF and just growing up, those are the plays that change the game. And yeah, you might get beat sometimes just looking and then you can't find them. They might catch it, but you also have a chance to make a play. And those guys are in perfect position to make those plays. And I think because they're not turning back, they're going to keep getting those PI calls because they're not turning back looking for the ball. Even if they turn back and don't even know where the ball is, but they're, showing that they're looking, I think the ref kind of swallows the flag and swallows the whistle on that, and they won't throw it. So I don't know if that's something they're being taught or if they're not being taught that, then that's just more so a nervous kind of tick kind of thing. They just have to get comfortable doing it.
Funny enough, I can add something to this because David Gibbs, the UCF defensive backs coach, was my defensive backs coach. Mm-hmm. And what he's trying to do is to make sure that they're covering their guys, and he's not making a point. I guarantee it, because the same thing happened with us 20 years ago or more.
That makes sense.
Yeah, 1996. So the same thing happened with us, and he just said, concentrate on covering the receiver. Yes, you have to look back, obviously, at some point, or you're going to get the PI call. But just make sure you're staying on that guy, because you said it there. Sometimes when you do look back for that ball, you lose track of the player.
Exactly.
That you're covering.
I'm assuming, assuming that's probably why.
I think he's probably teaching that with a little caution as well. Mm-hmm. But I think that he just wants them to really stay with the guys. Tight.
And there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think, obviously you want those picks, but they must be, it might be one of those things where they look back at the quarterback too much, maybe out throughout camp and spring, and, that they get beat and they lose the receiver. So it's one of those things where better safe than sorry, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So,
I remember
the only thing
him telling us a lot to look at their feet and their hands.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
To kind of, make
play
that a little easier, to play through.
If they flash their hands, and that's when you shoot your hands, yep.
Right. So, keep up with their feet. I just remember him screaming, watch their feet, watch the feet. Because you can tell where somebody's going to go with their feet. Mm-hmm. So that was a big deal before. So maybe that's it. I don't know. I'm not sure. I just have an inkling that could be what's going on there. So,
I'm guessing it's because we're playing a lot of man coverage right now, right? If you've noticed that, we're playing a whole lot of man coverage, and they don't want to have anybody get behind them. I mean, you hear Travis, our DC, talk about it all the time. He's like, we want them to make sure that we're stopping big plays. The only thing, we want to keep everything in front of us, and we don't want big plays. And I think that may be what it is just because we're playing so much man coverage out there, and we don't have a lot of help over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, that would make sense. If they're playing a lot more, cover one, then you kind of want your guys airing more so, playing through the hands because, if you miss a tackle or you turn and they catch it and you don't find the ball, that's a touchdown for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot more sense. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
So, Trey, thinking about this, we were talking about missing tackles because there was a lot of Walter Yates missed a ton of tackles. Louisville game, he was all over the place. He was great. He was setting the edge, right? What I noticed, when you were talking about the adjustments, is it looks like Travis Williams, who's our DC, he went from having the linebackers set the edge when we first came out. So you saw him pull up, but he would overrun or they would run to the other side and then block down and at the line of scrimmage and then go through the hole off tackle, right? But it looks like they switched to defensive backs and bringing a defensive back down to set the edge and help do that. And to me, what I'm looking at there is if a linebacker who's a lot closer to the line of scrimmage is running towards the running back and or this particular quarterback who does N'Kosi Perry, who does run the ball, I would think that gives that defensive back more time to react. Do you think that's where that's coming from and how that helped? Because they pushed those extra linebackers to the other side to kind of plug the hole.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard just because I don't know exactly what they're doing. My only thought process is just to get more bodies, around the line of scrimmage to kind of free up some of those guys just to get the O-line to kind of count that safety. Most of the time when the safeties are playing back, the O-line doesn't account for them in the blocking scheme, whatever they're doing, or in the pass protection scheme. So I think when you bring up, that safety and show him, the O-line has to account for him. So that kind of messes up, maybe not mess up, but it changes the way they block it. So I think it could be a good curveball, which, I mean, that's what I'm assuming. Because we would do that a little bit. The only problem is if you start running into teams that get real, smash mouth football, they have some of those tackles just wash that safety out. I mean, they'll punish him and they'll just move up to another guy. But, I think it was a good curveball. I think that's the only thing. Maybe just to mess with the O-line scheme a little bit. That's my assumption.
One of the other things that I noticed, especially in the first couple series here, and I'm watching it right now, actually, because I didn't get to see the first, probably about the first quarter. A lot of pulling at the ball instead of making the tackle. And, I mean, I understand pulling at the ball. If you can make that thing pop out, you're going to be a hero and all that stuff, but I just feel like these guys probably could spend a little less time pulling at the ball and then probably could make the tackle a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. I think even in just this day and age of college football, that kind of coaching is changing. That's how I was taught. I was taught first guy wrap up, second guy go for the ball. That's what I was always taught just growing up and even my early years in college. But as, the game's changing where guys are scoring so many points, I think some defensive coordinators are just teaching, look, if we can get 1-2 turnovers, like just from getting the ball, then that can change the entire game. So I don't think they're exactly coaching it like that. I think guys are kind of taking what they're saying out of context. Because, again, you can go punch the ball all you want, but if they don't fumble, they're going to keep on running. That's what they're taught. So I think they're kind of just, they're trying to make those big plays, which I get it. But, again, if you hold them up, that next guy's going to come, and that's where the big plays happen. So I think that's something they got to clean up as well. Because I'm not a fan, I'm not a fan of just the first guy, just trying to punch the ball out or grab on and try to strip the ball. Because if you don't get it, he's going to keep running. That's what they're taught.
Yeah.
They were getting I noticed the same thing, Andrew. They were getting an extra 2 to 5 yards in the first quarter and a half. Just based on that. Thornton was doing that, 14. A few of the others were. And, I thought back to your teams, actually, because I remember there was an emphasis on getting turnovers when you guys were playing so that we could get more possessions for the offense because the offense was so deadly, right? So
Exactly.
they weren't asking you guys to do. I thought that was maybe a similar type of mindset as the former Nebraska defensive coordinator, Mr. Chins, also kind
A
of
lot
taught
of
you
people
guys
looking
and
for
kind of
jobs.
emphasized.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, goodness. But yeah, I mean, we emphasize turnovers because I think also our defense was a little bit different. We played a little bit more aggressive as far as blitzing a lot. So it's a little give or take. When you go for, a blitz, you kind of want to make a big play out of that, where it's a strip sack, interception. So if they do complete it, we kind of want to go do it. But again, there's a right way to do it, and it was never, a one-on-one tackle, go for the football, unless it was the end of the game, like you had to get the ball back. But like in first, second quarter, you're not just going straight for the football. It's just tackle, live another down, or tackle and hold. Like I said, you hold the guy up for the guy. Hopefully, your teammates are running the ball, then they come punch it out. That's what we emphasize a lot more was as far as getting turnovers, not first guy like you said. Thornton was he's the guy that he just needs to shoot his legs is what we say, shoot his legs, wrap and roll, and then the next guy, if everybody's running like we're taught, the next guy come punch it out. That's what we were taught with Coach Chins and that staff. Because again, like you said, we had the number one offense in the country. Like, we don't have to play defense perfectly every drive. If we can get the ball 2 or 3 times, we're gonna win the game. That's how we were taught. I think that's what college football is turning into now. Just get the ball, because the guys are so good now. Offense is so good, and then the rules help them out. So I get it.
Something I just noticed watching this game, I'm like, Ford is the running back. That's the running back from USF.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
From the
Cows.
Cows.
He wanted to come to us.
Yeah, and look at that. Okay. I was like, wait, Ford Jr., I know that name. Was that the... Oh, then I looked, and it's the guy from the Cows. Okay. A little bit of a step down there, I think, for FAU. But speaking of step down, I kind of think that this was another step back in competition. You play a Louisville team. Well, first you play a South Carolina State, you look like, world burners. You look like, oh man, we're going to win the national championship. Then you play Louisville, and it doesn't look good at all. And then you go back to playing a team, and I consider the Conference USA a lower level, even though exactly. So FAU,
Quit getting bougie on us. Quit getting bougie.
A lower level team, and we look like world beaters again. I just wonder, when we start playing other teams in the American. I mean, in Georgia Tech, you can't really put them, that's a lower level too. Even though they're in the ACC, they're not, they're not a good team.
Program, easily.
Yes. Yes, big time. No question about that. I'm interested, and I can't wait to see what happens. I mean, Louisville won against Florida State, I believe, right? Or did Florida State beat them in the end?
Florida State beat them. They had a pick six at the end.
That's right. The very last thing. Okay, now I remember. I'm trying to remember back.
Just like our game.
It's been a couple days. Okay, so they're not world beaters either. So, but they made us look pretty bad. I'm a little concerned with when we get, back into playing equal or better competition, how this whole thing's going to work. There's probably not really a question in there. There's just a comment. I'm sorry.
No, I kind of understand what you're saying. I do. I feel the same way. I want to know, because I don't know how good we are or how bad we are.
It's like Jekyll and Hyde at this point.
Exactly. Like, we look great versus South Carolina. Like you said, we look great versus South Carolina State, and then you play a Louisville team who right now they got killed by Syracuse, so we don't even know how good they were at the time. But and then how good is Florida State? How good is Louisville? Like, we don't know yet. So it's one of those things where we're beating the teams we should, but a game I think we should have beaten in Louisville easily, we lose. And then Louisville loses the game to Syracuse where they get killed. And then now they're hanging with Florida State, who look good versus So it's like, I get it.
It's
I think
early.
that's what we all want to know. Yeah.
It's really early in the season.
Yeah.
So,
and then you see flashes, which is the thing. You see flashes of, a great offense. And then you see, like Louisville, a flash of, like, what in the world is going on? Like, we have all these players, yet we are getting 3 and out every drive. Like,
right.
I get it.
Right. All right.
So one of the things – oh, go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry.
Let's switch to the other side of the ball. I know you kept your eye on the quarterback as well. I'm torn still. I'm not 100% on JRP yet. I love it when he runs. In fact, I'm going to look back in some things that I said to people because this is – sometimes my true feelings come out in text messages that I send to people or whatever.
You mean group text?
Yeah, I mean, not just that group text, but first of all, I have a kind of a bad feeling, and this is just because I watched Mackenzie Milton and what happened to him, so I worry about him running and diving over people, 6 feet up in the air and all that stuff. It's fun. It's awesome. I mean, that really gets the crowd pumped up and it's exciting, but that worries me. And, I mean, he took some hits in this game as well.
Yeah.
Dude, that helicopter flight he took there was just like Mackenzie
dangerous.
did in Memphis.
Right. But did you see the back of his head hit the ground?
Yeah,
that
would have been
worries me.
worse had the defensive back not knocked him. He kind of gave him a push.
And then the targeting one that was on him, where the guy came in and hit him late and low, and really bounced his head off the ground. And I don't care who you are, and I don't care how good your helmet fits and everything else. When your head hits the ground like that, that hurts. Really used to hurt. I played on the little thin, the first AstroTurf stuff, where it was like playing on concrete. It's a little bit better now these days. I'm assuming that's grass there at FAU.
Yeah, I think it was grass, yeah.
And you get a little bit more give from that, but I worry about him getting concussions. I worry about his legs, his knees, obviously. He has flashes of absolute greatness running the ball. I mean, he is great running the ball. He's not so great at throwing the ball. And that's what worries me. I just don't see him, going down the field a lot. I mean, every once in a while, we were talking about this, I think, right when you came on off air, he threw the ball, I believe, downfield 6 times, like farther than 20 yards, and they caught 2 of them. Now, if that was a receiver not catching the ball or whatever, what did you see that he improved on for this game?
I mean, again, I'm a little bullish on them now too. I think it's a part of the conundrum we were just talking about, like how good are we really because of the flashes? And again, he's a great runner. He's a dynamic runner. I mean, like we said early in the season, he's probably going to break the rushing record for a quarterback. And I think right now he might be leading the team in rushing, which for us it's helping us win games, great. But in the long haul of just everything, I've never seen it work if you can't facilitate to your guys. I've seen it's easier to scheme a team where
he leads us in rushing, by the way, by a lot.
Which
he's 304 net yards to 185 with Johnny Richardson. That's a lot.
Crazy to me. Yeah, you'd think that was a running back,
101 yards average a game.
Yeah. That's crazy to me. That's just me though, but he has to facilitate out better. And even I get, he gets a few bubble screens here and there, but you've got to stretch the field because once again, it's only week 3. Once we start getting into conference play, he's going to have 4, 5, 6 games on him. Once we get to the SMU, Cincinnati, Temple, all those guys, they're going to have game plans for him because they're going to have so much more film, know what he likes, what he doesn't like. Early on, like now, he can get away with it. But once, a team gets a game plan, if they can stop the run, make him a thrower. That's what I worry about. That's kind of what we worried about with Mackenzie. Even early in his career, he was more of a runner and didn't really stretch the ball down the field, which is why we didn't have all the success so fast. And then once he started stretching the ball, and hey, I got a beast out here, Traquan Smith, just like JRP. Like I have a stud in Javon Baker. Just go let those guys.
And
make
Ryan O'Keefe.
Yeah, Ryan
He's
O'Keefe.
got 2 or 3 of them.
The tight end. Yeah, the tight end and Johnny Richardson. Sometimes you just gotta, trust those guys to go make a play. You don't have to. McKenzie will tell you he didn't throw the perfect spiral pass every time, but when you have guys that make plays, go let them make plays. I think that's what even Gus has to kind of instill that confidence in those guys, and I'm a big I'm big on that. Just go let those guys make plays. You
can't do it all yourself.
Yeah, I've only seen one person do it like that, and it was Cam Newton. But Cam Newton was 6'5", 250. It's a different ball game trying to deal with him. But and even he had help. But that's not JRP. He's not that physically imposing. And again, I think he's got to learn to slide. I've been saying it from the beginning. Like, I know you want to compete, but you cannot get hurt because, and I think I truthfully, like, I hate to say it, but he's going to continue to get targeting calls because as defenders, we don't know if he's going to slide. So we can't, I don't remember if you guys remember the Kenny Pickett play last year where he like pretended to slide and then didn't, we can't risk it anymore because that was a touchdown. Like, we're going to go hit, and if you slide, we're going to try to pull up. But he's not sliding, so he's going to continue to get hit.
And you can't, as a defensive back or a linebacker or whatever, it's really hard to pull up when sometimes.
Yeah, last second. Yeah.
Last second, I mean, it's almost impossible. And I understand, and I think that they understand that, somewhat. This whole targeting thing is still out of control as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is.
When I played, we didn't pull at the ball. We tried to knock the ball out of the person's hand by hitting him as hard as we possibly could. And I guarantee you, and I haven't talked to Coach Gibbs. I probably need to try to reach out to him. Even since he's been here, I just kind of, I don't want to be that guy. But I would like to know how because he really, really focused on us literally knocking the ball out of people's hands, hitting people as hard as we could every single time, that was what, that's the only way I played the game is because I was that guy that I didn't care about my body at that point. I was 19 and 20 years old. I didn't care. Now I'm paying the price with my neck, but literally my neck and shoulders, it's bad. And I know that's what it came from, but it's just a different game. It's a different game now. I guess another interesting thing that I said that wasn't a question. I apologize. I got sidetracked.
I get it.
I got sidetracked. I think I was watching the game and I knew what I was talking about, and then I was, oh man, yeah. I was talking and watching the game at the same time.
I think the way we're taught, even just the way we're taught to tackle now. I remember when I was a kid, we did bull in the ring. We did all kinds of different drills that,
Oklahoma drills.
Oklahoma.
I loved the Oklahoma drill when I was a kid.
You think we were crazy people, telling people to do that. Now they look at you like, are you trying to kill somebody? But I think it's just different. Now we're taught, because the game is changing too. It's a more of a space game. It's not, smash mouth, eye form, wishbone, wing, teeth kind of stuff. It's a lot more spread. So it's a different kind of style to tackle. And again, they want player safety, and I get it. So I think it's just a different kind of way they're changing the game. But I promise you, there's no way he's telling the first man to, hey, just go strip the ball. Don't try to make the tackle. There's no way he's teaching them that. They have to be trying to tackle first, then strip. I think guys are just trying to make plays and get turnovers, but it's detrimental.
Yeah.
So Trey, we were talking about the offense. A couple of things that kind of jumped out at me. One, they're using Bowser more as a fullback now for Johnny Richardson for John Rice Plumlee. Mm-hmm. Yep. And the other thing that we saw then, and in the offseason, I was talking about this, is I wanted to see with all the running threats that we had more two-back sets. So we saw that in this game. Can you kind of go through, we also saw a lot of motion, right? So from a defensive back or safety's perspective, playing against a 2-back set, which we did a lot when Frost was here, versus a motion set, which is more difficult to defend. And, especially with the motion sets, we were running the same set several times, but then we'd pull like a flea flicker or something like that. So kind of walk us through that.
So in my personal opinion, motion sets are always more difficult because as a defense, you're always sent in with a call, but you're always sent in with like a check if something were to change. So if they were to come out and I guess a normal 2x2 where it's 2 receivers to the right, 2 receivers to the left, we have a defense that we're going to play to that. The problem with motion is, say they do a quick, fast motion across. Now instead of 2x2, it's 3x1. But when you motion it quickly, everybody on the defense has to be on the same page for that check. So that's where I always think the problem is with motion, that it gives us with motion, because if you motion, if one person messes up the check, that could be a touchdown. If one person takes the wrong player, that could be a touchdown. And I think that's why I've always had a problem, because now you're relying on everybody to know the exact check, everybody to have studied the same, tendencies. Everybody knows the exact same defense as far as the back end. And up front too, same run fits for the linebackers. It changes on the motion. So I think that's where I like to see a lot more motion. But I think the 2-back set with us specifically can be dangerous just from the fact of, I think Johnny Richardson is more of like a hybrid kind of guy where he can go out and run routes. He's explosive, and I think guys, when he gets in the game, it's like, all right, where is he at? He's the Adrian Killins, Otis Anderson type of guy where you have to find him on the field. You cannot not know where he's at because he will take it to the house. I think that opens up a lot more. So I like the 2-back sets, and I think, you can integrate that with getting some guys like O'Keefe. He's the same type of player. You have to know where they're at on the field, because if you lose track of them, they're going to go for 80, 75-yard touchdowns. And that's where I've always seen, the problems when there's those motions in those 2-back kind of sets.
Yeah, for me, we have been using a lot of motion this entire time and running screens through it or jet sweeps or whatever. But I think this week was a little bit different. And for a 2-back set with Bowser and Richardson, and you've got JRP back there, that's basically 3 running threats at any given time. But my concern was, when you talk about tendencies as defenders, you're always looking at tendencies, and we pretty much knew if Bowser was going to be running the ball, it's going through the A gap, right? So as a defense, you know that's going to happen. If it's Johnny Richardson, it's either going to be off tackle or it's going to be outside. So having them both on the field at the same time, I think eliminates some of those tendencies that we were showing for the first 3 games, and I think that can help the running game as well. That's kind of what I was looking at.
Absolutely. And I think even just to throw off those tendencies, maybe you do run, Johnny Richardson through the A-gap one time, because maybe they're not even, as defense, that's what you're looking for. We don't know exactly the play that's coming every time. We're just going off of the tendencies we see, just like you said. I mean, if you can see it, of course the defense knows, hey, Johnny Richardson in the game. Why even worry about the A-gap? He's not running there. Let's worry about off-tackle stuff, outside stuff. So we're going to, maybe take a step back and widen out a little bit. Same thing with Bowser. He's going through A-B gap. Let's clog up the A and B gap because we know he doesn't want to go outside because he's not, that breakaway kind of back. And I think that's, like you said, having them both on the field, now you have to kind of see and now you have to react. And that slows you down, maybe even if it's just a half step. That half step can cause, that can be the difference between a 3-yard game and an 8-yard game. Just from a half step late to a play. And I think that's where, I think, Gus he did a good job of it, especially this last game, kind of mixing it in. But yeah, it's always definitely a problem. If you don't know what's going on, now you have to react to an offense that knows exactly where they're going. That's what makes defense already hard in itself. You don't know what they're doing, but they know what they're doing. So.
All right.
And tight ends is, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other thing was tight ends. Our leading receiver this week was a tight end, Mr. Alec Collard. He had 3 catches. I think it was 115 yards. And one of the things that I'd also talked about at the beginning of the season was kind of drawing that defense in and then popping it over into the middle of the field. for a tight end, or a tight end gets lost in the zone. You know what I mean? Talk a little bit about how dangerous that can be if you have a running offense and being able to kind of stretch the field that way. What kind of challenges does that present to a defense?
Again, I think if you have that kind of athletic hybrid kind of tight end that can kind of do it all, we talked about it earlier, when you have that, I think that's the extra dynamic of any offense. I think some of the best offenses in college and in the pros have that dynamic tight end. Because they're just a problem. There's no real position that can just go out and just erase a tight end if they're good. You can have a good wide receiver, but if you have a really good corner, you can go like, hey, go handle him. You can have a good running back. You have some really good linebackers or D-line. You can kind of take them out of the game. But a tight end, it's hard to find because they're freaks. They can sometimes they can block like O-linemen, but they run like wide receiver. So there's no perfect position unless you have those kind of freak show safeties like a Derwin James that are big and athletic. But those are rare guys. It's just they create mismatches for everybody. You put a linebacker on them. Most of the time they're faster than most linebackers, and they practice running routes like receivers. But if you put like a smaller safety on them, then they're just bigger than them, and then it turns into a basketball match. They're just going to box you out, and they're way more physical. So I think that's the dynamic that we kind of, that always to me is what takes the offense from like really good to great. And I saw it when Jordan Akins kind of embraced that role his last year. Like, okay, like I'm unguardable. And he was a problem for everybody to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one last question for you. We talked a lot about the offensive line play the last couple of weeks. I think that there was some improvement. What did you see as far as that goes? Did you see a big improvement there, or are there still some issues? You definitely see an improvement from game 1 to game 3. I think there are little issues, but to me, I think those get cleaned up just by schematic stuff. I don't think it's more so like I know week 1, it was more, I think they were nervous and maybe they just haven't gelled yet, but they're starting to figure it out. And I think that's the best thing about O-line is as the season goes, if the O-line consistently gets better, they're going to be really good towards the end. And that's what you want from that group. Obviously, you want them to be amazing now, but just with new faces, new players, then a new quarterback, it's just different because they have to get used to being JRP being so mobile. Last year, guys, if they were blocking, no knock on Mikey, but he's not uber. He's not a JRP when it comes to running. So it's a different style. Nobody is. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different kind of thinking.
It's Greg Ward. And do you remember Greg Ward?
That's exactly what
that's
it is.
who he reminds me of.
Yeah, that's who he is. That's truly what he is. He's Greg Ward.
Yeah.
And again, like the problem that to me I think those guys have is they'll pass protect and now they're like, oh, we have JRP back there. And maybe they're like, I don't want to get a holding call. Let me just let him go because I know JRP probably sees him and runs, but what if he's not? Then that's when you get those sacks. And I think that's where you kind of have to figure out, not just the O-line, but the quarterback too. You just have to, find that sweet spot. And I was saying that, after week 1 as well, like on kick return, you have to find the sweet spot of your guys and you got to kind of figure it out. So it's a definitely a learning process for the O-line, but they have gotten better. I will say that they've gotten better.
Right on. Roger, do you have one more quick question for him?
For me, talk about this because we heard 2 people were sick and playing. One, Devad Wilson. I was watching him. He looked a little confused the first quarter. Some other guys, the safety is supposed to be directing traffic back there, and there were other guys that were telling him where to be in position. And then Alec Collar, who also had a great game as a tight end, he was also sick. So kind of talk us through how that affects you on the field when you're playing and you're sick.
It's if you're feeling, I guess it just depends. If it's one of those things where it's like a flu bug or like a bug, then that can make you feel terrible because football you're already straining and you already feel terrible just because like you're tired, you're exhausted. I've told people, I don't think there's ever such thing as getting in football shape. I just think you kind of manage it until the season's over.
You get used to the pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's nobody that's like, hey, I can go play 100 plays and I'm not going to be tired. No, you could play 100 plays, but you're pushing your limits, and it's one of those things where, just adding a flu bug, now you don't feel well. You're probably not eating a lot. You're not, taking in a lot of fluids. You just feel bad. And that'll make you, half a step slower, and again, like I said earlier, a half a step, that's a difference as far as safety. That's a difference between an incomplete pass and a 75-yard touchdown, and that's where, it's hard. So I get it. And I feel bad, knowing that, he has a bug. But again, my coaches always say, if you're out there, you're healthy, you got to give us your best. And if you can't, that's fine, but, you don't, just as an athlete, you always want to push through. But, at some point, if it becomes detrimental, you just you gotta hang it up.
Yeah. You can have some brain fog as well.
Oh, yeah.
And when Roger was saying people were telling him where to be, that was probably his probably had a little brain fog going on.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little sluggish.
Sick.
Yeah.
And the mind doesn't go as fast as it probably should either when the rest of your body doesn't feel good.
And shoot, he probably already wanted to I'm sure he wanted to throw up. It's just a terrible feeling. That kind of stuff keeps, the average person, in bed. They call out of work, stuff like that, and he's out there playing a football game. So I give him props, but, I can only imagine. Luckily, I never was sick like that before a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuff is that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us your upcoming prediction. Last week, I think, Roger, I texted I guess I forgot to text his prediction in. He was really close, 38-14 or 38-13 or what did it was
38-13 is what you texted me.
Yeah, 38-13. You were only a couple points off of each side.
Yeah, man.
That was That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I knew they'd bounce back, but
I think you have to be well in the lead because you were in the lead before.
He is. He's about half of the next person up, which is me.
Yeah. So what is your prediction for this week? Since you're not going to be with us there on the rest of the show at the end, where we give our predictions.
I'm gonna think. Let me see. I'll say. What I say? What 38? I'm gonna say 42-10 this week. I think they're gonna.
Okay.
I think they'll handle them pretty easily. I believe. 42-10.
Okay, I'm going to try to stay as close as I can to your prediction, since yours is first.
Mine's already on on our show notes, so I'm just saying it's pretty close to what Trey's got. So I'm not cheating here.
So Roger, you wrote his down, right?
Yep. Awesome. We got everybody's but yours.
All right, awesome. All right, well, it was good to talk to you again, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much. I'm glad that you're back with us this week.
Oh, yeah.
And next week as well, and we will talk to you after the Georgia Tech game and see what we can figure out with what's going on out there.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on here. Can't wait to talk next week.
All right, so great to talk to Trey again. I really love talking to him, and I think he's doing a really good job in that spot. So great to have him on here. I'm very impressed. I like to talk to him. So we do need to talk a little bit about Georgia Tech game coming up. We may as well, I guess. So where do you guys want to start with that?
Well, why don't you start with the matchup predictor so we can get that in?
Okay, I'll get there. I got to get to the actual page that's on.
Oh, it's on the game notes. I'm just saying. Just messing with you. Yeah, I mean, look, this game is going to be really interesting. Lots of UCF tie-ins here. Jeff Sims, starting quarterback for Georgia Tech. He's a running quarterback, was actually a UCF recruit. We were in it, and he ended up going with I think he actually committed to us and then switched his commitment to Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins was a coach at UCF during the O'Leary years as the linebacker coach. He did well here when he was here. And Gus, he also knows Gus as because he was the D coordinator for Mississippi State, coached against him there quite a bit in the SEC. And there is some smoke that he may not be available to coach this game because he may no longer be with the team. And lastly, Todd Stansberry, also a former UCF AD. He's on the hot seat as well. So, this game has a lot of UCF ties in it. There's lots of stats out there that we can look at, but none of them really look good for Georgia Tech. So it'll be an interesting game for sure. And Andrew, what does the matchup predictor say?
All right. Well, the matchup predictor says 92.4 for us, which leaves 7.6% for Georgia Tech. They have this thing says that they have a 7.6% chance of winning this game. Like
against a Power 5 team, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Supposedly, right. I did.
Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say the matchup predictor. I did cheat and look ahead just to see if anything had changed the rest of the season. And we are favored by the matchup predictor in every game the remainder of this season. So ESPN the football power index must have been impressed with especially our second
they love
half
us again
for FAU.
I guess
yeah,
so.
They love us again.
I guess they think that we finally got it together and it's going to happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
So we are favored by 20 points in this game.
Oof.
Anytime a team is favored by that many, watch out. I don't know. I don't.
We
like
are 2-1 against the spread this year.
I don't
the
like
one
to be
obviously being
favored by that much. It started off today. Let's see how it rolled here. So it started off at 5:38 a.m. They started at -18. We were at an 18-point favorite. And then for some reason at 3:14 p.m. we went to 18.5. Then we were 18.5 through the 3 o'clock hour, and then 7 o'clock tonight. For some reason we went to 19.5, and then 7:18 we were 19.5, and then 7:22 went to 20, and has stayed at 20. We'll see how that goes the rest of the week.
So the funny thing about this is that Georgia Tech only averages 15 points per game for the season. So we're favored by more than they score per game.
Yeah, I think our offense probably has a lot to do with that. They are 264 yards a game, where we're 532 per game. Their third down conversions 28.9. We're at 51 points per game. 15. We're at 36.7. Rushing attempts per rush 3.8 yards for them, 5.7 for us. Pass 5 yards for them. We're at 7.6. So.
Well, the big one that stood out to me is their defense allows 438 yards per game versus our 271. So they're getting 264 yards per game, and they're giving 438 yards per game, which tells me that offense is getting off the field early and often. And, we just put up 600 yards. Do I think we'll put up another 600 yards? Maybe,
and they're still running a triple option type thing there? Or not?
No, they went away from that
Okay.
a while ago when Jeff Collins took over.
Well, he was running
and Jeff Sims got there. They recruited for to get away from that. With,
because he was running it at first when he was there. He kind of stuck with the thing for a while there. Jeff Sims quarterback rating of 65.1 for passing, and they put Plumlee at 92.8. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think we win that one.
Yeah.
I
425 yards passing so far for Sims and 778 yards for Plumlee. So, interesting.
Well, They are 1-2 this season. Last game, they lost a blowout to Ole Miss. So they've got in between, the questions about whether Jeff will be the coach going forward, the AD will be there going forward, and a 42-0 loss. I can't imagine they're feeling too good about themselves. They did beat Western Carolina University. Who knows where that is? 35-17.
Western Carolina, obviously.
Yeah, wherever that is. Well, unless they're directionally challenged like our neighbors to the southwest, Central Florida. And they lost to Clemson 41-10. So this is not a good team, folks. I mean, they last played us in our 2020 season and lost 49-20 at home.
That was also against number 4 and number 20 in the polls, though. So,
like Clemson, I'll give you, but yeah, I'm not sold on Ole Miss.
Okay.
Yeah, much like I said last week, against, after the Louisville loss, it was a good opponent and a good situation to kind of bounce back and get our feet reset underneath us. I think coming back home now after the last time, and Gus has talked about it numerous times since in the press conference, just how bad he felt that our fans, brought the energy and brought the crowd noise and everything that they brought to the bounce house when we were playing against Louisville, and they kind of felt like we let them let the fans down. I think that this Georgia Tech opponent coming into the bounce house is kind of that perfect follow-up game now that we have shown the ability that we're looking for, had a more disciplined game, kind of bounce back against FAU. And it does feel like coming back home now, Georgia Tech is really that opponent to, continue this momentum moving forward. So I think this is going to be one that hopefully is another springboard for us, because as we know, after this game, it does start to get pretty difficult with some of the American Conference opponents that are coming in to play us, and ones that we have to go on the road to play. So this is really a catalyst for the rest of the season, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, are you ready for one of those really weird random facts that Andrew can come up with every once in a while? Like
Sure.
Really weird, like totally out in left field. This is crazy. Check this out. Hooters Restaurant sponsors the defensive line, the offensive line of Georgia Tech. So Hooters Restaurant, get this for NIL deals. Hooters restaurant chain signs 51 college offensive linemen nationwide to name, image, and likeness deals. So Hooters restaurant, they went with offensive line groups rather than individual athletes. So they sponsor Auburn, LSU, Oklahoma, Miami, Georgia Tech, Missouri, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Florida Atlantic, and our friends across the way over there.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
I think that's interesting.
Obviously, that's where Hooters started. I'm not surprised that the Cows are.
Is Hooters a Florida thing? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it started over in Bradenton, I believe,
okay.
or Brandon, Florida. Yeah, it's over there on the west
Bradenton.
coast.
Interesting, though. Yeah. Georgia Tech. So that's a weird random fact by Andrew.
So they've got that going for them, right?
Yeah.
So
they're sponsored by Hooters.
there you go.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they go there and get some bad chicken wings before the game.
Hey, their chicken wings aren't bad. Come on, man.
No. I just meant hopefully they get a bad batch.
Oh, a bad batch of them.
Because if all of their offensive linemen, are sick or whatever, that'll make it even better for us.
So Andrew is wishing E. coli on our opponent this week.
It's really salmonella you get more from.
Or salmonella,
from raw chicken. So if we know anybody at Hooters over there by the school, if you're listening.
So the keys for this week, other than their offensive line eating bad chicken for me, is Jeff Sims running is stopping him in the running attack. He's really the only one that produces any offense, and the running game runs through him. I think we can do that. And then if we can keep if we can keep Georgia Tech out of the backfield, because I've mentioned this a few times, but 8 sacks through 3 games, which is 29th in the country, and 23 tackles for a loss, which is 8th in the country. So as long as we can keep them out of the backfield, I think it's going to be a long day for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, I mean, it's come about the time here that we do our picks. You heard Trey's pick a little bit earlier, since he's not with us at this moment. So I guess it's time to make ours. So it's time for the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Welcome to the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Visit TijuanaFlats.com for takeout or delivery, or visit your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. All right, one of my absolute favorite parts of the show, especially because it means we're getting towards the end. I'm just joking.
Wow.
All right, so
big question. Last week you were sick. Did you get your Tijuana Flats in this week?
I did, actually. Yeah, I had a steak chimichanga. Megawana, by the way. Megawana. Which is, you get the extra meat and cheese. It is awesome. I'm sure they've got all kinds of specials going on. I do know that they're still going on the street corn stuff that they were doing, which is pretty good. You might want to check that out. So anyway, Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week is where we give you our score predictions. What was Trey's again, real quick? A little refresher.
For this week?
Yes.
42-10.
42-10. So he's leading. Run through the whole thing there, Roger.
Okay. So last week, Ben, he's doing pretty well for himself. And overall, right now, we did get his pick, by the way. His pick was, for last week, was 38-13. So he was closest to the pin yet again. So showing why he's our expert. He is leading the pack with 24. I'm next at 51. Ben's making up ground at 55. And then one game, AP kind of threw you back, and you're in last place with 60. So,
wow. That's crazy.
That 132-point mishap kind of threw you off. But other than that, you said
that's
that was a hot take.
That's because I'm doing the hot take properly.
Yeah, you said it was a hot take.
Yeah, I'm doing the hot take properly. All right, let's start with Ben this week.
All right. I'm actually this is I think I'm going a little bit more conservative than it is going to be the final score. I'm saying 35-10 UCF. So that's obviously still covering the 20-point spread. And I might be underselling what the offense can do, but as Roger mentioned earlier, this defense, while they do give up some yards, they have been able to turn opponents over so far and get into the backfield. So I don't know. We might have a couple turnovers, which will cause us to not quite get over 40, in my opinion. So 35-10, though, I think our defense is still going to stand them up.
Okay, Roger.
Nice. All right, so I think Ben's cheating a little bit. He was looking at Trey's because his was 42-10. I think he's hedging his bets, but we aren't going there. So for me
by
this
the way,
week,
I filled that in prior to the show before Trey's was filled in.
You did.
I know. I saw it. I saw the little purple blink cursor blink at me, so I saw you in there. Yeah, for me it was 42-14. I do have a little more confidence in this offense. I'd like the 42 number. I think we're going to be good there. I think we'll get a couple of turnovers of our own. I do like Georgia Tech to score 14. Really, the only reason why I think that is I think it'll get later into the game, and I think we'll let off the gas a little bit. I think last week we saw a little bit of scaring Taggart a little bit, and a little bit of payback for that U.S. or that Cows that game in 2016 or 2015 where where
he went for
hit
it
the
on
gas
fourth
pedal.
down.
Yeah, and so Gus kind of let off the gas pedal because we were right there, but I think Willie knew we could have done that. So I think 42-14 this week. The offense shows enough juice against this defense for 40-plus points, and I think that 14 points is a good number for them because we let off the gas a little.
Okay. Perfect. Set this up perfectly. All right, so I am going to say that we do stay under 50 points, but by 2 points. I'm going to say 48, but I'm going to say our defense is red hot right now. And I think they're feeling confident after the game last week at FAU, and I think that the Georgia Tech is horrible. So I'm going to say 48-7. 48-7.
Ooh, I thought you were going to blank them there for a minute.
No, not quite. Not quite blanking them. I would love it, obviously. So 48-7's mine. So.
All right. I've got it recorded.
All right. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think that they're all good numbers. We'll see who comes out on top. All right, next, news and notes. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, in Roger's own words, number 23 women's soccer is now 2-2-4 after starting conference play, tying Memphis 0-0 and Texas 2-2. Next up, Thursday's match versus conference mate Cincinnati at home and kicks at 6 p.m.
All right, and for UCF men's soccer, it's now 4-1 after annihilating Temple 4-1. The Knights will play at Memphis on Saturday at 8 p.m.
Notice how nice and short Rogers was for himself. All right, newly minted number 25 and still underrated what they should be. UCF women's volleyball. They continue to dominate and they are now 8-0. The team screamed Omaha, Omaha, Omaha after defeating Omaha 3-2 in a close game, and then they defeated the number 23 Kansas Jayhawks in straight sets. 3-0, as I mean Roger predicted last week. They finished the weekend by defeating Lipscomb in straight sets 3-0, and they will travel to Memphis to play their next conference game Friday at 7 p.m.
Well, there's really not much more to talk about here, except I got to throw it in there that my Jayhawks are 3-0. Going into this week, and I don't even know who they play. They play the Blue Devils, Duke. They play Duke in football, so that definitely should be a winner, and I hope that it is. So hopefully some of y'all
are still undefeated for some reason, ...
Yeah, well, whatever. I kind of made it my own. All righty, this has been Knightline 276. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps.
And I'm Ben Stout. Go Knights!
Charge on!
Charge on!
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. BSCTO, our life. Tonight our knights will shine.